here today without y'all supporting this effort with the restriction that's going on, and we certainly appreciate all those who are here with us. My name is Chris Lasher. I'm the County Judge Executive over in Livingston County, and proud to be part of this event and all that's going on with the fight against the restriction. I have a few people that I want to recognize that are with us today. Representative Lynn Beckler, Representative Richard Heath, Representative Kenny Imes, all from the state of Kentucky, and then Senator Stan Humphreys from the state of Kentucky. And then from our Kentucky Department of Fisheries, Ron Brooks, our lead biologist in the Fisheries Division, is with us here today from the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife. And then we've got some special friends that's been helping us from Tennessee that we want to recognize, and we appreciate their efforts as well. And those are Doug Markham from TWRA, Rick Duty from Tennessee, and then we would be remiss if we weren't to mention Mike Patterson, who's been a tremendous help to us as well. And then from Tennessee Fish and Wildlife, Frank Fist is also with us. We appreciate all those folks being here today. I also have a letter from the governor as he continues to help with this as well, and I'd like to read that at this moment. It says, "Greetings. As a native of Western Kentucky, I have monitored the Corps of Engineers' plan to restrict access to some of that region's most fertile fishing areas near Barkley Dam on both the Cumberland River and Lake Barkley, and I have grave concerns about the impact of that decision. For the citizens of the lakes area, boating and fishing are an integral part of our heritage and our traditions. The tourism dollars generated by outdoor activities in this region, particularly fishing, are significant. I support the Kentuckians' right to fish and continue to urge the Corps of Engineers to reevaluate their plan. Sincerely, Stephen L. Beshear, Governor of the state of Kentucky." And we appreciate all of his efforts. Now, me personally, I've never been involved in anything quite like this, in which so many experts, so many organizations, so many people, even so many people on the inside of the organization we're trying to get to listen to us, who are against the plan to restrict the area that we've used for 4 decades. 4 decades. Now, that's a long time. We just don't understand why. Multiple times we've extended our hand to them to try to reach a compromise. And unfortunately, multiple times I feel like I've took a slap in the face. And I don't know about y'all, but I've took about all those slappings I'm going to take for a while. As you can see today, the spillway gates are open. Nobody argues the point that when the spillway gates are open, you shouldn't be there. We've all can use good judgment and good common sense and good practices, and we can reach a compromise on these conditional restrictions on all these dams when they're spilling water. And we've really done that safely for all 10 dams over those 42 years. It's been a safe practice. There's millions of man-hours of fishing that have occurred below these dams in a safe manner. And I think the Corps would like to be able to say that about some of their projects. They should be promoting how wonderful the safety has been at these instead of trying to restrict us from using those. Now, to this point, all those things have failed. We've got our congressional staff, federal congressional staffs with us here today to talk about some of the things they're going to do to try to prevent that from going on through legislation. Now, that takes some time, and we know that's going to take some time. So in the meanwhile, we've been working with some legal teams to try to come up with a resolution to try to slow this down a little. And I'm proud to be able to announce today that Judge White, myself, and Senator Stan Humphreys will be taking a letter to the governor of the state of Kentucky asking him to direct the Attorney General of the state of Kentucky to file an injunction to stop these barricades here in Kentucky under the public trust doctrine. That public trust doctrine says that these rivers belong to the state of Kentucky, and we believe we have a legal right to continue to use those, and the Army Corps of Engineers has overstepped their bounds for the use of these rivers in this area. I'm not going to talk any longer because I know y'all come here to hear from our federal folks to see what their plans and what their purposes are and how they'll go about that. At the end of this conference, what we'll do is we'll take some questions from the media, and there'll be a gentleman who will bring out a microphone to all the media folks, and at the very end of it, everybody will come back up on the stage and be able to answer some questions. So we wanted to make that clear so we can kind of move it along and keep them on their schedule. And again, we appreciate all of your efforts. It is a rare time in which 3 U.S. senators and a congressman are all in one spot at one time, especially in Livingston or Lyon counties, and we appreciate their effort to be here so much. And at this point, I'd like to ask Judge White to come forward, and he'll handle it from here out.
I'll tell you what, when we first started this, when I first heard the rumor that this might be a problem, I contacted Judge Lasher here in Livingston County and told him about it and said we might have to join forces and go against this. And he said, I'm 100% behind you, and he has been. He's been right there beside me. We've traveled to Washington. We've had conference calls. We've done a lot of things, and I thank him for his friendship and the work that he's done. I thank every one of you for being here, and especially, you know, when you can say, hey, Senator, and about 3 people turn around, you know you've got a special event going on. So we're really excited about that. 3 very influential senators and influential congressmen all gathered here because they want to back us up in what is going on here and stop the Corps from what they're doing. Senator McConnell, I'm glad you all guys are here because we've got a federal agency that's wanting to spend $2.6 million that they don't have to build barricades. Now, that's the cheapest part of what they're wanting to do. You know, you got to add on top of that, one of the things that I found was a Homeland Security brochure that talked about these types of brochures and about these types of barricades. And one of the things it mentions in there is that the upkeep and maintenance of the barricades far exceeds the installation and purchase of the barricades. So you add that to it. Every year we're going to be dealing with this. Another part of the cost that it's going to hit us with is the campgrounds, our picnic areas. This money, $2.6 million, was not allocated in the budget. So it's been ordered that the money come from the budgeted items already at our local campgrounds, at our local picnic areas, maintenance, repair, mowing the grass, whatever it may be, which will deteriorate even further our campgrounds and picnic areas. Now, just think, when you guys go on a trip somewhere and the place is run down, do you go back? No, it's going to hurt our tourism industry in a great way. To Kentucky Fish and Wildlife, who we're glad are here and been fighting this all the way through, had a study in 2000 that said this tailwater just at Barkley is worth about $3 million to our local economy. So that's going to be destroyed. So on top of destroying a multi-million-dollar industry right here, they're hurting our commercial fishermen, our local guides, our mom and pop stores and restaurants and bait and tackle places, and basically they've just ignored these issues. The Nashville District Corps, with all this laid out on the table, believes they owe us no explanation. They won't communicate with us. Their own policies call for communication with state, with federal, with local agencies, with Fish and Wildlife, to discuss these things and determine whether they're going to move forward with something. But we've been left out. State's been left out. Congress has been left out. Here, just recently, I got tired of being left out. So I sent a copy of the policy to Lieutenant Colonel James DeLapp, the Nashville District Commander, and told him, you know, we'd like to be a part of what you're doing here. We need to explain to you how this is going to hurt us. And he sent a letter back, April 8th. It says, Dear Judge White, thank you for your interest in public safety and the implementation of the restricted areas around our core projects. In order to come into compliance with the regulation, the interdisciplinary team is not actively pursuing additional information at this time. If it is determined that the team needs input at some time in the future, your offer of assistance will be considered. Sincerely, James A. Blau. You know, that's the way we've been treated so far. I've sent 4 freedom of request or freedom of information requests to the Corps. I've had to appeal 3 of them because I don't get the information I request. Doug Markham, I think you've sent out 2 Freedom of Information Act requests. Here's the problem with what we get back from the Freedom of Information Act requests we send. Page after page of information that we need completely redacted away so that we can't see what's going on. It's basically they're blocking me from the truth. They're barricading me out of the information I need. I think the Corps, the Nashville District Corps, understands freedom of information the way they understand freedom to fish. Wouldn't y'all love to watch Senator Rand Paul give a 13-hour lecture to the Corps about the meaning of freedom? He could do it. You know, they mentioned safety. They say safety is the reason that we must do this. Since 1970, there has been 7 drownings on 10 dams. That's 43 years. 7 drownings on 10 dams, not just one, compared to 881 on our lakes. Barkley Dam right here, since 1970, over 43 years, we've had 1 drowning. I think that's, I wish it was 0, but that's a good safety record, just as Chris Lasher mentioned. Now just think, for 1 drowning, they're willing to spend $2.6 million, destroy our economy here. They're willing to create this stir. They're willing to violate their own policies of communication and transparency that they hold so dear. They're willing to ignore state, local, federal officials, the will of the people, because of safety for 1 drowning. What are they going to do to our beaches and our lakes that has 881? What's next? It makes me wonder, because see, this battle's not really over fishing, it's over freedom. Right. Speaking of freedom, my 96-year-old grandmother's here today. Glad she's here. She told me I had to mention that anyway. Just over the dam here lies land between the lakes. That was home to a lot of residents from Lyon County, Livingston, several other counties around here. A long time ago, we had to turn that over. The federal government owns it now. On our lakes out here, under the water, is the old city of Edible and the old city of Qatar. You see, Lyon County is no stranger to turning their land over to the federal government. We've had our fair share of it. And I tell you what, we're not giving another foot. We're done. Especially to barricades. They say that they're not in compliance with the regulation. Well, let me teach you a little bit about the regulation. The regulation was written in 1996, and it was written by the Corps. And what the Corps had to do is, once they wrote a regulation, then they wrote what's called an operational management plan for each dam. And they wrote 10 of them. And we got a copy of them thanks to Congressman Whitfield and the work that he did. And we started looking through it. Now, the same Corps that wrote DeLapp's favorite regulation that he says we must barricade these dams also wrote this. They wrote, allow the public access to facilities when there is no dangerous turbulence and restrict access during discharge events. Then it goes on to say this is a reasonable, common sense management approach. I agree. The same Corps that wrote DeLapp's favorite regulation also wrote this, provide a management plan that is acceptable to state and local agencies. It is desirable that any proposed restrictions and changes to existing operating procedures be supported by these local agencies. The one that I love, my favorite one, the same Corps, wrote this. A physical barrier to boats is not practical either upstream or downstream of the power plant in their current operational management plan. You know, they say the reason that this is such a battle is because Congress has legislated all their power away to the Corps. Well, I say it's time to legislate it back. You know, 9 Kentucky judges signed a resolution. Lyon County Fiscal Court, the Kentucky League of Sportsmen, Kentucky Western Waterlands, they're all against this, yet they say they can't hear us. Over 3,000 people have signed a petition. Thousands of freedom-loving people have called their congressmen and their senators and the Corps, and they say they can't hear us. Bill Dance has come out on our side, and they say they can't hear him either. Kentucky State Senate, Stan Humphreys led a resolution through there that passed. Tennessee House and Senate passed a resolution. The governors have both come out on our side. Fish and Wildlife, Tennessee Wildlife Resources Agency, Tennessee Wildlife Federation, they've all come out on our side. And of course, they say they can't hear us. Congressman Whitfield filed a bill in Congress, Freedom to Fish Act, co-sponsored by many Kentucky and Tennessee congressmen. The senators got together, all 4 of them, and did the same thing in the Senate. And the Senate actually passed something attached to the budget to stop the Corps, yet they say they can't hear us. Well, as far as I'm concerned, District Commander James DeLapp, can you hear us now? Let him hear you. I tell you, there's somebody that they've heard from quite a bit. It's my congressman, Congressman Ed Whitfield. He came down here for the very first meeting. He's been involved in this just as the rest of them from the very beginning. And he came all the way down here to sit in that Grand Rivers meeting. And after they presented their plan, he stood up and he said, well, I've listened to this, and it's obvious you guys have made your decision to barricade her dam. Well, I've made my decision. I'm going to go back to Washington and make sure you do not accomplish that. And he's done that. Congressman Ed Whitfield.
Judge White, thank you, and I certainly want to thank Judge Lasher as well for the great leadership they've provided. But most important, your being here today means so much, because I was thinking back, driving down here today, that when the first Congress met up in New York City in 1789, one of the basic principles, certainly the founding of this country, was to have a government that is responsive to the needs of the people. And that's precisely why we're all here today. We're asking the Corps to be responsive to the needs of the people, and that is the freedom to fish in a safe way. We've done everything that we can do. I can't tell you how many meetings we've had with the Corps, privately and publicly. I can't tell you how many phone calls we've had with the Corps. I can't tell you how many letters we've written to the Corps. Most recently, I sent a letter to them asking for a complete explanation of the reasons why they made this decision. And like Judge White, I received a letter back from Colonel DeLapp that indicated that it would take them at least 6 months to get back with an answer to our question. So it's going to take a concerted effort of all of us working together, and your being here today reinforces the commitment that we have as a people, that we want the Corps to be responsive to our needs. I feel really fortunate that we've had such a cohesive working group focused on this issue, not only here in Kentucky, but also in Washington. As you know, the Fish and Wildlife Service in Tennessee is opposed to what the Corps is trying to do. Ron Brooks and the Kentucky Fish and Wildlife Service are opposed to what the Corps is trying to do. And we've had such great cooperation from Senator Lamar Alexander from Tennessee, who's with us today. Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell have been steadfast and have done everything we've asked them to do in trying to convince the Corps not to move forward with this effort. So as we told the Corps that January day down here at when we had the first meeting, they seem to be determined to move ahead. And I'm going to recommit to you today, we're going to continue to do everything in our power to stop them. We do have the Freedom to Fish Act. We're going to try to get it to the floor under suspension calendar to get a vote on it. And And I don't know what else we're going to do, but I'm going to commit to you today that our group, working together, we're going to do everything possible to make sure that we protect the right to fish at these dams. So thank you very much. I was so carried away that I forgot I have the responsibility to introduce our next speaker, and it's a real pleasure for me to do that. Ever since I've been in Congress, Mitch McConnell has been a friend and a confidant. And the one thing that I know about Mitch McConnell, he has great respect and admiration from the other members of the U.S. Senate who've elected him as their leader on the Republican side. He's been a strong advocate for Kentucky on so many issues, and he's given us wise counsel on this issue. So would you give a warm welcome to the Republican leader of the United States Senate, Mitch McConnell.
Well, thank you very much, Ed. It's great to be with you again, and thank you for the wonderful job you've done representing the 1st District. And of course, it's a pleasure to be here with my colleagues Lamar Alexander and Rand Paul. And I too want to thank Judge White and Judge Lasher for their aggressive leadership on this important issue. I can remember when I was a kid, little kid, my dad and a friend of his taking me fishing below the dam. They knew what they were doing. They didn't need any advice from anybody else about safety around the water. Now, look, we've reached a point in our country where they're trying to tell us how many soft drinks we can drink, how much of this or that we can eat. The nanny state is on full display. They're trying to tell us what we can do, where we can do it, how often we can do it, as if they're smarter than all the rest of us. Now look, we have to have a government. Nobody here is trying to dismantle the government. But this government not only is spending money we don't have, we now have a debt as big as our economy, which makes us look a lot like Greece. They're trying to tell us what to do in absurd and ridiculous ways. And it's time to draw the line. Both the judges have given a compelling argument for this ridiculous proposal not to go forward. A compelling argument. They need to listen. And we're going to do the best we can, as Congressman Whitfield said, and I suspect the next 2 senators who are coming up here are going to say, to get their attention. Because this is an absurd suggestion, and it needs to be stopped. Now look, nobody has said more about meddlesome government than my new colleague in the Senate, Rand Paul. He's an expert on the abuses of the nanny state. He's even written a book about it. And I'm pleased at this point to present to you the junior senator from Kentucky, Rand Paul.
Thank you, Senator McConnell. When Judge White and Judge Lasher asked if I could be part of this, I thought it was because of my legendary fishing prowess. And then my wife reminded me, you can't fish, you never catch anything. And I said, well, why do you think they've asked me? And my wife said, because you could talk for a long time. You know, I think sometimes the government in Washington thinks we're just too dumb to take care of ourselves. They think that somehow they've got a monopoly on knowledge. But we have all this evidence and all these groups, and everybody's saying the common sense solution is here, and that we know it's dangerous when the water is coming out. We can have some rules. Like Senator McConnell says, about having no rules. It's about whether the rules should be closer to home. And if you don't like it, you call up your judge executive or your state representative, or you go down and you knock on their house and you figure out how to make realistic, common sense rules. And I think, well, why can't government in Washington get it? Why are they so distant from it they can't get it? And it's not that the federal government is inherently stupid, although it's a debatable question. It's that they're just too far away, and that's why we wanted a division of government. You have local government and you have federal government. We have a national defense, and it probably is best taken care of by a national government. That's what our founding fathers thought. But whether or not you can fish and how close you can fish to a dam in your area is obviously a local question that you have every capacity to decide on yourselves. And I consider it to be my job to protect you from the overreach of your federal government, and I will continue to do that. Thank you very much. And you may ask why I'm wearing this plaid shirt today. Because I thought when you appeared with Senator Alexander, you were supposed to wear a plaid shirt. And then I show up and Senator Alexander doesn't wear his plaid shirt. But I will tell you from getting to know Senator Alexander over the last year or two, one thing that he is an expert at and very good is he will get something done on this. He already has passed it one time. It doesn't have the force of law yet, but we got it passed largely because he goes around and he talks to everybody and nobody wants to say no to Lamar Alexander. And so it is my pleasure to introduce the guy who I think will help get this done for us, Senator Lamar Alexander.
Thanks, Rand. I want to thank all the Kentuckians for letting me come across the border. That's good to do this. I can't think of anybody I'd rather have on my side than Rand Paul, Ed Whitfield, and Mitch McConnell. That's a great start. In truth, I'm here to be on your side. I'm here to be on your side. You've got some dams on the Cumberland River in Kentucky, but we got more. We got 6 of the 10 dams on the Cumberland River in Tennessee. And we owe Ed Whitfield and the county judges, Lasher and White, a big vote of thanks for calling this to our attention and getting this started. And I'm delighted that Senator Corker and I have an opportunity to work with Senator McConnell, the leader of the Senate, and, well, we hope the whole Senate one of these days before too long, and Rand Paul, who is about as effective on rights of Americans as anybody I know anywhere. So thank you very much. Now, we're here today to stand up for the fishermen of Tennessee, of Kentucky, and of the United States of America. We're here today to stand up for the freedom to fish on these 10 dams. We've been doing that ever since the dams have been built. Generations of fishermen have been fishing below these dams. Everybody knows you're not supposed to be out there when the water's like that. We have enough sense to know that. That's 20% of the time on the 10 dams on the Cumberland River. That's the Corps of Engineer statistics. But what the Corps says is they want to put barricades there 100% of the time. That's like putting the gate down at the railroad crossing 100% of the time. The track's not dangerous if the train's not coming, and fishing isn't dangerous if the water isn't coming through the dam. We prize our freedom in this country. We outdoorsmen prize our opportunity to exercise some personal responsibility and evaluate risks. That's why we're outdoors. We don't want a government that's strong enough to make our lives risk-free. We can do that for ourselves. Now, Mitch McConnell was talking about fishing with his father. They were probably on a TVA dam. They were probably below a TVA dam when they did that fishing. TVA has dams on the Tennessee River. Their dams make this one look little. That river makes this one look small. They don't have any plans to put barricades. Now, if TVA does it, why does the Corps of Engineers insist on it? So, I can see that the people of Kentucky have spoken. They've got 3 of the finest spokesmen I know anywhere. Well, the people of Tennessee have spoken too. There are 900,000 people in Tennessee who bought fishing licenses last year. So far as I can tell, about every one of them has fished below the dam sometime in the tailwaters based on the mail I'm getting in Tennessee. So the people have spoken, the federal delegation has spoken, the county judges have spoken, you have spoken, the United States Senate has spoken. We hope the Corps of Engineers will listen, use some common sense. The state of Tennessee and Kentucky wildlife agencies have said, look, we'll work with you. We'll make a plan. We'll use our resources to make it safer out here when the water's coming through the dam. And we'll do that, and they're getting no answer on that. If they're getting no answer from the Corps, we're ready to pass the Freedom to Fish Act and stand up for the fishermen of Kentucky, Tennessee, and this country. Thank you for listening.
Engineers probably once a week for the last 6 months and asked them the same question about scheduling, about if they've made any purchases, everything like that. This week they did say they made purchases, but they're not really being forthcoming. Are you guys sure that they're going to tell you guys when this is going to happen, or are we going to wake up one day and there's going to be buoys out there?
I doubt it. I doubt they tell us. Because we're hearing reports from different places that it's possible they have purchased some buoys and signage and so forth, but we can't confirm that. I don't know if
they did say it's there. They told me yesterday it's there.
Right back here in the back. Step forward.
We publish a really small newspaper in Grand Rivers. My question is, we're passing all of this legislature, or we're trying to pass all this legislature to the Freedom to Fish Act, which I very much appreciate. Two questions come to mind. Number one, why can we not just fire this person, turn up the lap, and send a message that when you act roguely, you get treated roguely? And number two, with all of this legislation about the Freedom to Fish Act, it seems to me that the more important legislation would be, why is the Corps of Engineers not responsible to the Congress? How are they operating as such an independent agency that they are not being called to task on every issue?
Quick comment if I can. I think this is a general issue that's even bigger than just this. You have so many unelected bureaucrats that are writing rules all the time. More laws or rules that you have to follow are being passed by people you don't elect. You don't get to elect the Corps of Engineers, you elect us, and we should assert our power. So Congress does need to be more assertive. There are over 100 regulations passed every year by people you do not elect, regulators, that cost the economy over $100 million per regulation. We have $2 trillion worth of regulations. They're all being written by people you don't elect. We do need to take control, but we need to have Mitch McConnell to be the leader to do that. And until that time, we don't have control of the Senate. Congressman Whitfield does have control through his committee, and I think they can use some oversight. He might comment on things they might do to bring the Corps before their committees, maybe, to have some repercussions there.
The committee that I'm on, as the Energy Committee, actually does not have jurisdiction over the Corps. As to your question of who could fire Colonel DeLapp, I would say that would be the President of the United States. But, and I don't think that he'll be doing that. But we're hopeful that the Corps will not put these buoys up, these boundaries up. We've had extensive conversations with them by phone, in person, by letter, and we talk to their office almost every day. And I would be the first to say that they, at this point, have still not been responsive. But it's already been indicated when the Senate passed its budget, there was language in there precluding this, but it was not enforceable by law. Because that has to be done by authorizing committees, and that's why we're trying to move the Freedom to Fish Act. But we all are very much aware that these bureaucratic agencies of the federal government are very zealous in pushing their regulations, and it's very frustrating for us as elected members in dealing with it. So it is an ongoing issue, as Senator Rand Paul pointed out. And it's becoming more of an issue, it seems to me, under this administration than any other, because they are so aggressive on so many fronts that it's keeping all of us really on our toes trying to... As a matter of fact, on the House of Representatives, we passed 48 bills last year reversing regulations in the federal government. But because the current leader of the United States Senate does not really agree with us on many things, he would not take them up over there. So that's why many of us would like to see Mitch McConnell as the leader of the U.S. Senate, the majority leader. So thank you.
Let me add, what we're experiencing here is just a microcosm of a much larger problem confronting our country. I recently made a speech and had behind me a stack of 20,000 pages of the first Obamacare regulations. 27 feet tall, 20,000 pages. Those are just the first regulations. I want to stay on fishing, but this is just a part of a much larger federal government on steroids over-regulating all of our country, both in the public sector and the private sector. We're going to keep pushing back at this, but you must know the regulators work for the President of the United States. That is part of the executive branch. We're going to try to stop this in every single way we can, as Senator Alexander and Senator Paul and Congressman Whitfield have said. But the view of this administration is that we don't have enough regulations. And so they've been busily at work with these unelected bureaucrats trying to regulate every aspect of our lives, and it's having a huge impact on our economy. That's why we've had a growth rate over the last 4 years of less than 1%.
Congressman Whitfield, where does the Freedom to Fish Act stand in the legislative process?
Well, it's been introduced, it's been referred to, because we're so embroiled in budget and appropriations right now, it's getting bogged down, and that's why when I was up here a while ago, I talked about a suspension calendar. We can try to get a bill to the floor under suspension calendar, and then you have to get 2/3 of the votes of those present to pass it. So that's our new strategy right now, is try to bypass all committee and go right to the floor, because I'm concerned with the speed with which the Corps is moving right now. Well, I'm going to do everything in my power to make it happen.
Let me just add to the Kentuckians. We're just getting started. We have lots of things that we can do. The Water Resources Act is coming up in the Senate in the next few weeks. The appropriations bills are coming up in the Senate in the next few weeks. Many things happen in the House. We have the Republican leader of the Senate right here on the stage with us. Rand's got a big following. Ed Whitfield's there. There are plenty of things that we can do in the Congress, and we're just getting started. Now, hopefully, we can get ahead of the Corps putting the physical barricades out there, but we can also make them take them out if they do it. But why waste taxpayers' money on physical barricades when we don't have enough money to pay for what we need to do in the recreation area?
I know you guys have offered some compromises. I don't know if they're considering any of them. Have you heard any feedback about anything besides buoys and cables?
I can answer part of that. Some of you may or may not know there were 4 recommendations that come from a team from 2 years ago. 3 of those 4 recommendations were compromises that we can all live with. Only one of them was not a compromise. That's the one for full barricade, and that's the one that they have chosen. And I think when that occurred, there was one of those 3 that was the top, which included more enforcement, more signage, and the closure to the restrictions when they were spilling. And I may be speaking out of turn, but I think from the information we've gathered through the FOIAs, they left that meeting thinking that's what was going to happen. And even a Lieutenant Colonel Mitchell, who preceded Lieutenant Colonel DeLapp, wrote in a letter that we have through those FOIAs that said there's no need to barricade. We don't need to do this. And sometime between there and the appointment of Colonel DeLapp, that changed.
Region is that once these buoys get put in, this fight stops. And I wanted to make sure that I was understanding you guys correctly, that you guys are going to continue to fight if the buoys do go in to get them out.
You want to answer that way?
Absolutely. If they go in, we're going to keep fighting.
Again, we appreciate everyone being here today, and I'd like y'all to give them one big round of applause for the effort that they put forth.